My name is Camille Reeves, and I was still wearing my honeymoon dress when my husband's phone rang. We had landed in Santorini less than 3 hours earlier. The hotel suite smelled like fresh flowers and the view from the balcony showed the most beautiful stretch of ocean I had ever seen. I was standing barefoot on the cool tiles, holding a glass of water, thinking finally everything was perfect. Then Owen's phone buzzed on the table behind me. When I turned around, his face had gone completely still. "It's my mom," he said quietly. "She collapsed. An ambulance is on the way." Within minutes he was searching for flights back home. I asked him to wait. Maybe it wasn't as serious as it sounded. He shook his head and kept typing. I didn't fight it. What kind of wife argues about a medical emergency on her honeymoon? We packed in 40 minutes, grabbed a taxi, and spent 7 hours on a connecting flight home. I held Owen's hand the whole time. He stared at his phone. When we arrived, Vivian was sitting upright on her couch, drinking hot tea and watching a cooking show on television. "The doctors released me quickly," she said sweetly. "Just a little stress." The next morning, Vivian said she had arranged for me to see a specialist doctor. She explained that the shock of a family emergency during a honeymoon could cause invisible stress on the body. She said it with such a caring face that I, Camille Reeves, a woman who had always believed the best about people, almost believed her completely. The doctor's office was set up in a quiet room at the back of Vivian's house. That alone should have been my first warning. A real specialist would have worked from a proper clinic. But I sat down, told myself she was being thorough, and smiled politely at the man across the desk. He was calm and neat, wearing a white shirt and holding a clipboard. He didn't ask about my sleep or appetite. He didn't check my blood pressure or ask about any physical symptoms. Instead, he asked how long Owen and I had been together. He asked whether Owen ever stayed out overnight without telling me. He asked about my work schedule and whether I earned more than my husband. I answered honestly, assuming it was some kind of stress evaluation. Then he looked down at his clipboard and asked the question that changed everything. "Mrs. Reeves," he said quietly, "how long has your husband been seeing Lena Whitmore?" I stared at him. That name meant absolutely nothing to me. For a moment I thought I had misheard him. "I'm sorry," I said. He repeated the name slowly, watching my face. His pen wasn't moving. He wasn't writing anything down. He was simply studying my reaction. "I don't know anyone by that name," I told him. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he exhaled and placed his clipboard flat on the desk. Something in his expression shifted. It was no longer clinical. It was closer to pity. He reached into the drawer beside him, pulled out a thin envelope and slid it toward me. Inside were 4 photographs, taken from a distance, slightly blurry but completely clear enough. Owen was in every single one, standing outside a hotel in 3 of them, and in the 4th, kissing a dark-haired woman on the side of her face. I set the photos down carefully. My full name is Camille Reeves. I had been married for exactly 9 days, and I was very calm. That surprised me more than the photographs did. "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Mr. Carver," he said. "I'm not a doctor. I'm a private investigator. And your mother-in-law hired me." I sat completely still for a long moment. Mr. Carver waited while I processed what he had just told me. A private investigator. Vivian had hired one and sent him to watch me. "She thought I was cheating on Owen," I said. "That was her stated belief," he said carefully. "Or at least what she told me. Vivian had contacted him 3 months before my wedding. She said she suspected I was hiding a secret relationship, and that Owen deserved the truth before the marriage." 4 weeks after that, Mr. Carver followed me. He watched my morning routine, tracked my movements during work hours, and noted everyone I met after hours. He found nothing. Not a single suspicious meeting. Not one unexplained phone call. But while following me, something unexpected happened. He started noticing Owen instead. "I tried reporting what I found to Vivian," Mr. Carver said. "She stopped answering my calls immediately." I looked down at the photos again. The woman beside my husband looked comfortable, relaxed, like she had been there many times before. "She stopped answering your calls as soon as you told her about Owen," I repeated slowly. "That told me everything," Mr. Carver said. "She didn't stop because she was surprised. She stopped because she already knew." The pieces began fitting together like a terrible puzzle. The collapse. The phone call in Santorini. The ambulance that was apparently no longer needed by the time we landed. The television. The calm, sweet face of a woman who had barely left her couch. The emergency was fake, I said. I can't confirm that with certainty, he said. But I can tell you this. The night you and Owen flew home early, I followed him from the airport. He opened a smaller envelope and placed a single photo on the desk. It showed Owen at the check-in counter of a hotel across the city. The timestamp read 11:47 at night. He had driven me home first. He said he needed to check on his mother. Instead, he had checked into a hotel with Lena Whitmore. I breathed in slowly, then out. How long? I asked. Mr. Carver laid a handwritten timeline across the desk. Neat and precise dates, locations, and confirmed meetings between Owen and Lena. The earliest entry was dated 8 months ago. I stared at that date for a long, still moment. He proposed to me 6 months ago, I said. I know, Mr. Carver said quietly. That single fact hit harder than any photograph. Owen had been seeing Lena for 2 full months before he got down on one knee and asked me to spend my life with him. I had cried when he proposed. I had called my mother from the parking lot because I was too happy to drive home. I thought back to everything that followed. The engagement party. The rehearsal dinner where Vivian held my hand and said how happy she was to have me as a daughter-in-law. She had been planning to destroy me at the very same moment. I didn't cry. I just kept staring at the timeline. There's more, Mr. Carver said carefully. Before we get there, he said, I need to ask you about your prenuptial agreement. I remembered the prenuptial agreement clearly. Owen had brought it up 3 weeks before the wedding. He said he wanted us to start our marriage with full transparency about our finances. He said a prenup wasn't about distrust. It was simply a smart, modern decision. I signed it after reading through it once. What I had not paid close enough attention to was the exact wording of certain key clauses. Did Vivian ever ask to read the document before the wedding? Mr. Carver asked. I thought back. Yes, she had asked Owen to bring it over one afternoon. At the time I assumed she was simply being an involved parent. My guess, Mr. Carver said, is that Vivian wrote most of that agreement, or at least shaped the parts that matter most. What do you mean? I asked. He pulled the folder closer and looked at me steadily. The prenup was designed as a trap, he said. Not for Owen. For you. It was built to protect him and leave you with almost nothing if the marriage ended in a specific way. The room felt very quiet. Mr. Carver walked me through the prenuptial agreement section by section. The language was complicated, but the meaning was not hard to understand once explained clearly. If I was found guilty of infidelity, I would receive almost nothing from the marriage. No share of the house. No claim on our joint savings. No portion of the investments Owen had made using money connected to my inheritance. But if Owen cheated, the consequences were nearly meaningless. A small financial penalty. Language so vague any decent lawyer could argue around it in an afternoon. The structure was now completely clear. Vivian had sent a private investigator to find evidence I was cheating. If he had found anything at all, it would have activated that clause and stripped me of everything. But he found nothing. Because there was nothing to find. So the plan stalled. Owen continued meeting Lena while I remained completely unaware. They needed something on me, I said. Yes, Mr. Carver agreed quietly. And they were running out of time to find it. Mr. Carver told me the specialist appointments were not finished. Vivian had arranged 2 more sessions with him over the following week. Each was presented to me as a routine health check. Something thoughtful a caring mother-in-law organized after a stressful event. The real purpose was entirely different. Each session was a chance to question me more directly, to find some small detail that could be twisted into evidence of something I had never done. She believed very strongly that you were hiding something, Mr. Carver said. Was that her conclusion or yours? I asked. Hers, he said immediately. She was convinced before I ever started watching you. She wanted me to confirm what she already believed. When I couldn't, she became cold. He described 3 phone calls where Vivian pushed him to look harder, to watch my workplace, to check who I met during lunch breaks. Every time he reported nothing suspicious, The calls grew shorter. She wasn't interested in the truth, he said simply. I looked at him directly. But you are. He paused, then nodded slowly. That's exactly why I'm sitting here talking to you instead of reporting to her. Mr. Carver admitted something I hadn't expected. When Vivian first hired him, he had believed her story completely. She was well-dressed and well-spoken, describing her daughter-in-law with what sounded like genuine concern. She said I had appeared in Owen's life suddenly and pushed the relationship forward too quickly. So he watched me carefully and honestly for the first 3 weeks. What he observed was a woman who woke up early, worked long hours, came home on time, cooked dinner, and called her own mother every Sunday evening. You weren't hiding anything, he said. You were simply living your life. He paused and looked at the photographs between us. Meanwhile, your husband was living a very different one. I had spent years trying to earn Vivian's approval. Small memories surfaced now, the way she always found fault with minor decisions I made. The dinners where she spoke about Owen's previous girlfriends with particular warmth. The way she sometimes looked at me, not like a daughter, but like a problem she hadn't yet solved. I had always told myself I was imagining it. I had not been imagining any of it. I asked Mr. Carver a direct question. Why are you telling me all of this? You were hired by her, not by me. Because I found something I was never supposed to find, he said. And I'm not willing to bury it so someone can use a legal document to destroy an innocent person. He told me he had tried once more to reach Vivian after confirming Owen's meetings with Lena. He left a voicemail saying the investigation had produced unexpected findings, and she should contact him urgently. She never responded. 3 days later, she called back with entirely new instructions. She wanted him to dig into my financial background and personal history before Owen. He had refused. At that point, he said, I realized I wasn't working for someone who wanted the truth. I was being used as a tool in someone else's plan. He had continued watching the situation on his own time, out of what he called professional conscience. What he found in those additional weeks changed everything. I kept following Owen, he said quietly. That's when I found the apartment. The apartment was on the quieter side of the city. Mr. Carver showed me the address on a small piece of paper. I recognized the neighborhood. Owen had mentioned once that he met clients there for lunch. I had thought nothing of it. The apartment had been rented for 4 months. The lease was in Owen's name. But the payment records were more interesting than the lease itself. Half the monthly rent came from Owen's personal account, Mr. Carver said. The other half came from a separate account. He paused. That second account is connected to Vivian. I leaned back slowly. Vivian wasn't simply aware of the affair. She was actively funding it, paying for the apartment where her son was keeping another woman, month after month. She didn't just know, I said quietly. No, Mr. Carver agreed. She was managing it. I looked at the address again. Owen had a complete second life, and his mother had helped him build and maintain every part of it. There's something else you need to know about Lena Whitmore, Mr. Carver said. As he investigated further, he discovered that Vivian had known Lena's family for many years. They had grown up in the same neighborhood. Their mothers had been close friends for decades. Old photographs on Vivian's public social media showed family gatherings from years ago, and in several, a younger Lena stood beside a teenage Owen, smiling comfortably. She always wanted Lena for Owen, Mr. Carver said. In her mind, they were always supposed to be together. He had also found messages on a public community page where Vivian once wrote about how deeply she admired Lena's family, long before she knew anyone was paying attention. You were never the daughter-in-law she wanted, he said gently. From the very beginning, she was looking for a way to undo the situation. I thought about every family dinner. Every time Vivian compared me, in small careful ways, to women Owen had previously dated. I had always told myself I was imagining it. Why didn't Owen simply marry Lena from the beginning? I asked. Mr. Carver opened the next section of his folder. Money, Mr. Carver said simply. He laid out a financial summary piece together from public business records gathered during the investigation. 18 months ago, Owen's business was in serious trouble. He had made a large investment that failed to return what he expected and had borrowed more than was wise. The debt was growing quietly. hidden from most people in his life. Lena's family had no significant financial resources. I, on the other hand, had a stable income, solid savings, and an inheritance from my grandfather received the year before Owen and I started dating. Your financial stability solved his problem, Mr. Carver said. Once you were married, your income helped his business recover. Your inheritance gave him room to breathe. I thought about the early months of our relationship, how quickly Owen had become serious, how eagerly he had met my family, how smoothly everything had moved forward. I had thought I was simply lucky in love. Once the finances were stable enough, Mr. Carver continued, the plan was to remove you from the picture entirely. Using the prenup, I said. Using the prenup, he confirmed. So the honeymoon interruption was never random, I said. Mr. Carver shook his head. Santorini was the one place where Owen was completely separated from Lena. A 10-day honeymoon halfway across the world was a genuine problem for their arrangement. But if something serious pulled Owen home early, something that made him look like a devoted and caring son, the honeymoon could be cut short without raising any suspicion. The emergency gave him a reason to leave, Mr. Carver said. And it made him look sympathetic doing it. He placed the hotel record back on the desk. Owen checking in that same night we returned. He drove you home from the airport, Mr. Carver said. He waited until you were inside. Then he left. I remembered that night precisely. Owen had kissed my forehead and said he was checking on his mother. He seemed genuinely worried. I had offered to come along and he gently insisted I rest. I had gone to bed feeling sorry for him. He had gone to a hotel with another woman. The detail that stayed with me longest was the careful planning. They had arranged all of this long before we ever boarded our flight. I sat with everything for a quiet moment. Then I made a decision. I didn't rush to stand up. I didn't cry. I didn't reach for my phone to call Owen. Every one of those reactions was exactly what they would have expected, emotion first, confusion keeping me manageable. I had spent too much of my life being underestimated by Vivian. I was done being predictable. I want to hire you, I told Mr. Carver. He raised one eyebrow. Your mother-in-law's contract with me ended when she stopped returning my calls, he said. I have no obligation to her. Good, I said. Then you're available. I explained that I didn't want to confront Owen immediately. If I walked through our front door that evening and accused him, he would simply deny everything. I needed a complete, unbreakable picture, one that couldn't be argued away in a courtroom. Mr. Carver looked at me carefully, then a small nod. You want to build a case, he said. One that covers all of it, I said. The affair, the apartment, the prenup, the fake emergency, Vivian's role in every part. He opened his notebook without another word. When do we start? He asked. Right now, I said. Mr. Carver was thorough in a way I quickly came to trust. Over the next 2 months, he documented everything with careful precision. Every visit Owen made to the apartment. Every hotel stay charged to his business account. Every transfer from Vivian's account toward the rent, regular, consistent, and completely damning. He gathered photographs with clear timestamps. He obtained financial records through legal channels. He collected receipts and location confirmations that placed Owen exactly where he claimed he wasn't on certain evenings. But the most valuable material came in a different form entirely. Owen and Vivian were not careful people when they believed no one was listening. Mr. Carver used legal recording methods in spaces where neither party had any reasonable expectation of privacy. A parking lot, a restaurant entrance, a busy lobby. In one recording made outside Vivian's building, Owen and his mother spoke openly about the divorce timeline. Owen complained that things were moving too slowly. Vivian told him to be patient. She said once I had signed certain updated documents she was preparing, everything would become much simpler. They spoke about me like I was a task on a checklist waiting to be crossed off. I listened to that recording 3 full times. The recording that shook me most came in the 7th week. Mr. Carver played it in his office with the door closed. The audio was slightly muffled but every word was clear. It had been captured outside a restaurant where Owen and Lena shared dinner one Thursday evening. After the meal, standing beside Owen's car, Lena asked when they could finally stop meeting in secret. Her voice was tired and frustrated. Owen told her to be patient. He said it would all be over soon. Then Lena said something that made my hands go cold. "I just want to move into the house and be done with it," she said clearly. Owen laughed. A quiet, familiar laugh I recognized immediately. The laugh of a man who believed his plan was working perfectly. "You will," he told her easily. "She'll be gone soon anyway." I set the recorder down on the desk between us. My house. The one I had partially purchased with my own savings and my grandfather's inheritance. Where I had planted a garden last spring and spent 3 weekends choosing the right shade of yellow for the kitchen walls. They had already decided I was leaving it. That recording became the centerpiece of everything that followed. I brought everything to a lawyer named Mr. Briggs. A colleague described him as someone who read legal documents the way surgeons read scans, with complete focus and nothing missed. I understood exactly what she meant within the first 10 minutes of our meeting. Mr. Briggs read through the prenuptial agreement in silence. He made small pencil marks in the margins as he worked through each page. When he finished, he looked up with an expression I hadn't expected. He was smiling. "Did Vivian write this herself?" he asked. "I believe so," I said. He turned the document to face me and pointed to a clause near the bottom of the 3rd page. Dense and complicated, but he walked me through it word by word. The infidelity clause, designed to take everything from me if I had cheated, contained one significant and irreversible error. The wording was too broad. It didn't only cover actual infidelity, it also covered any situation where a spouse, or anyone acting on their behalf, attempted to manufacture false evidence of infidelity against the other party. "She wrote a trap," Mr. Briggs said with quiet satisfaction, "and accidentally built the door facing the wrong direction. What Vivian and Owen had done activated the very clause they created to protect themselves." Mr. Briggs advised patience. I had come to him with recordings, financial records, photographs, property documents, and a prenuptial agreement that had completely turned against its creators. Most lawyers would have told me to file divorce papers immediately. He told me to wait. "Right now," he explained, "Owen and Vivian believe their plan is on track. They think you're unsuspecting and cooperative. They believe the prenup is entirely in their favor." He leaned forward across the desk. "That confidence is the most valuable thing you have right now." He explained that if we moved too quickly, Owen's lawyer would have time to prepare a counter-strategy. Evidence could be challenged. Vivian's involvement could be quietly removed from the picture. But if we waited until the precise right moment, when both were completely relaxed and fully convinced everything was going to plan, the impact would be total and immediate. "We want them to walk directly into this," Mr. Briggs said simply. I thought about the night we returned from Santorini. Vivian on her couch, tea in hand, so completely sure of herself. I had learned something from her, I realized. Composure was a powerful tool. I was finally learning to use it properly. I went home that evening and acted like nothing had changed. Over the following weeks, I cooked dinner and asked Owen about his day. I attended Sunday lunches at Vivian's house, complimented her cooking, and helped clear the table just as I always had. She watched me during those lunches. I could feel it every time, measuring me carefully, looking for any flicker of suspicion behind my eyes. Every time I smiled back warmly, I could see the small, satisfied expression that crossed her face. She believed she was winning. I let her believe it completely. One evening after dinner, I told Owen I had been thinking about our future. I said I wanted to talk about moving forward, maybe starting a family, making some changes around the house so it felt fully like ours. Owen's face lit up immediately. He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. "I'm so glad you're saying this," he said. "Mom and I were just saying how settled things are finally starting to feel." Of course they were. I looked at his hand resting over mine. "Let's have a family dinner this week," I said. "I want Vivian there too." Owen smiled broadly. "She'll absolutely love that." "I know," I said. I set the dinner table carefully that evening. Good plates, candles, the kind of table that said everything at home was warm and fine. I made the food Vivian always said she liked best and wore the dress Owen always complimented on family occasions. By the time they arrived, everything looked exactly like a peaceful family dinner. Vivian walked in first, glancing around my house, the house she had already promised to someone else, with the relaxed warmth of a woman who believed the hardest part of her plan was nearly done. We sat. We ate. Conversation flowed easily. Owen talked about a new project. Vivian asked about my mother. I answered everything with a steady smile. Then, 40 minutes into dinner, the doorbell rang. I stood and walked calmly to the front door. Mr. Briggs stepped inside first, carrying his briefcase. Mr. Carver followed directly behind him. I turned back to the table. Owen's fork stopped moving. I walked to my seat, sat down, and placed 3 items on the table: the photographs, the financial records showing the apartment payments, and the printed transcript of the recordings, including the one where Lena talked about moving into my house. I think it's time we talked about the prenup, I said. Owen's face had gone completely white. Vivian recovered faster than Owen did. She straightened in her chair and said whatever I thought I had found was clearly a misunderstanding. She said Mr. Carver had fabricated everything out of professional bitterness. She said the photographs could easily be taken out of context. Owen found his voice a moment later. He said the woman in the photos was a business contact. He said the apartment was used for client meetings. He said I was misreading everything. They were both very smooth. I almost admired it. Mr. Carver placed a small audio recorder on the table without a word and pressed play. Vivian's voice filled the room. Clear and completely familiar. Once she signs those updated documents, the process will be much simpler. Then Owen's voice. She'll be gone soon anyway. Then unmistakably the laugh. The silence that followed was absolute. Vivian looked at the recorder. Then at Mr. Carver. Then slowly at me. Her composure cracked. Not with tears or shouting. Just a quiet collapse around the edges of her expression. Like a wall that had been standing too long and finally decided it was tired. Owen said nothing at all. There was nothing left to say. The divorce case moved quickly once the evidence was formally submitted. Mr. Briggs filed everything together. The financial records showing Vivian's apartment payments, the authenticated recordings, the photographs with timestamps, and a legal argument built around the prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause. The clause Vivian had written to protect Owen contained a precise definition buried within its own language. It covered any attempt by a spouse, or anyone acting on their behalf, to manufacture false evidence of infidelity against the other party. The investigation Vivian had funded, the fake specialist appointments, the directed questions Mr. Carver had been instructed to ask. All of it was documented. All of it formed a clear and consistent picture of a coordinated attempt to frame an innocent person. The clause activated completely. Owen was not entitled to any portion of our house. He lost all claim on our joint savings and the investments tied to my inheritance. Vivian's role became part of the official court record. Her personal finances were examined separately as part of a fraud case Mr. Briggs filed alongside the divorce proceedings. Owen's lawyer attempted twice to challenge the prenup's language. Both attempts failed. On the day the final ruling was issued, I sat in that courtroom with my hands folded quietly in my lap. I did not smile. I simply breathed. A year passed quietly after the ruling. Owen's business collapsed within 6 months. Without access to our joint finances, the debts he had hidden for years came rushing back. The last I heard, Lena had ended things with him shortly after the court case became fully public. Vivian lost more than money. The social world she had spent decades building carefully, the neighborhood committees, the reputation of a devoted and respectable mother, went cold. People talk. Court records are public. And the details of what she had planned were not the kind that stayed quiet for long. My house was mine. My savings were mine. My grandfather's inheritance, the gift he had left for my future, had never truly left me at all. I rebuilt slowly and with care. I went back to work with full focus. I planted new things in the garden. I painted the bedroom a color I chose entirely for myself. Months after everything ended, a short message arrived from Mr. Carver. Best case I ever worked, it said. I read it twice. Then I stood on my back porch in the late afternoon sun, holding a warm cup of tea in both hands. The honeymoon they ruined had turned out to be the moment my real life finally began.